Alright everyone, that Ebola epidemic that nobody but me seems to pay any attention to anymore, it's still there. Ebola is still going through. The UN refused to declare it a global health emergency, which I think will come back and potentially bite them in the ass, because rebels, literally like yesterday, attacked another Ebola center outside in North Kivu, I believe, near Butembo, and they actually killed one of the doctors that was there. Now, this keeps happening. What you've got is a situation, for those that may not know, because I can only talk about Ebola so many fucking times and say the same thing so many fucking times. For those that don't know, there's an Ebola epidemic right now in northeast Congo, and it's near several other nations' borders. It has hit a major metropolitan area. They've been deploying a vaccine that appears to work fairly well, but the thing is, there's not nearly enough of it. You've got millions and millions of people in the afflicted area. If you can only vaccinate 1 or 2% of the population, I guess it's very good for the people that you're testing the vaccine on. In a live testing scenario, everyone else is fucked. They've also got a serum that appears not really to work. It's like, we lowered the death toll by 10% with this tobacco-based serum. Well, at least the whole world's population won't die if it goes fully airborne and infects everyone. At least some people will be left. At this point, some people probably wouldn't think that was a good thing. They'd be like, oh God. But rebels keep attacking shit there, because what you have is an intertribal sort of warfare scenario. Basically a civil war in this region and elsewhere in Congo. What you've got is a corrupt government is clinging to power. People have been protesting, rioting at times. You've got rebel movement all across that part of the country, in which these different groups are vying for control, for territory and goods and so forth. The problem is that that's right in the Ebola zone. The other problem is that there's also a concurrent malaria epidemic, because they've got a shortage of anti-malarial drugs and mosquito nets and everything else. So the situation is very touch and go. The problem is that the aid workers, they want security. They're like, well, if we're going to operate in this zone, it's dangerous enough to be in an Ebola ward. It's more dangerous if rebels are shooting at it. And it's even more dangerous if a crowd comes in rioting and attacking the Ebola center because they think that we're doing voodoo or something. And unfortunately, that's been happening. The world's response was shameful. Their response was to blame the aid workers, say, well, you don't need soldiers around. You're making people stressed out and you're causing these attacks. Bull fucking shit. These rebels were attacking things before the Ebola epidemic happened. They don't need any other stressors. They just shot up an Ebola ward and killed one of the doctors inside. They were probably targeting it deliberately. They probably do it because out of a sense of superstition, there are people there that believe, hey, the Ebola has been caused and promulgated by Westerners. They came here and gave us Ebola. They're trying to kill all of the African people off or something. There are people that believe that. We need to get out of the ivory tower fucking mentality that a lot of Westerners have, that everyone else in the world is quite as knowledgeable about contagion as people who have, 12 years of solid education or more. We've got to get out of that sort of echo chamber bubble, because it's not doing us any justice. Instead, what we have, our governments here, try to shame the medical community for wanting topical security in an area where they could be attacked at any given time. And you think, you're driving one of these aid vans across, shitty country anyway, it's like all flooded, dirt roads and stuff, trying to get to the ward, and then a bunch of guerrillas come out of the woods and start shooting at you because they want the van. Oh, the medical equipment, we'll sell that. Oh, yeah, we'll take and meanwhile, you got several Ebola patients in the back bleeding everywhere. The rebels throw that open. They don't know what they're sick with. They just think, they're sick. Fucking throw them by the side of the road or kill them or whatever. That's basically what happens. So you've got a scenario where things are from bad to worse. There's really not a whole lot of hope of containing it properly until people in the West get a little bit more serious about the situation. The other part is there's no real pressure, there's no grassroots pressure to take care of the problem. The medical community knows it's a problem. But like the governments of the world and the international community, like the UNs and stuff, they only respond to a lot of grassroots pressure or to a lot of money. There's not a lot of money to be made in Ebola, because, of course, until the last big epidemic or this one, it was really on the back burner health-wise, and now they know it can mutate more readily, so I guess they freed up some money, but it's still slow going, and there's no grassroots pressure. Most people don't even know about the Ebola epidemic happening. The last time around when, it was 10,000 people infected and dead, they considered it a little bit more. You're getting up towards 1,000 dead in this particular outbreak. It is an epidemic. It should be taken more seriously. And yet nobody even talks about it. They don't even know it's happening. And until that happens, the problem is, until people know there's a problem and start speaking out, the international community doesn't want to do anything. Until the international community says it's a problem, the media doesn't talk about it. And unless they talk about it, the mainstream media is, a lot of soccer mom Americans and Westerners, they won't know what's going on. And so it's sort of a closed spiral of preventing people from caring about the Ebola epidemic. My problem is this. We've got to stop thinking that the world is... I believe in having border security, but that doesn't really help as much with disease. You can do disease screening for certain things. I think it was, say, AIDS or something like that. But it's really going to be hard with Ebola because it can jump a border very easily. And it has. In the last outbreak, it traversed 2 different borders, infected people in 3 different countries. And then there was a corresponding outbreak in Congo of a different strain at the same time, which could be the one we're seeing now. While it certainly looks fairly infectious, most of the time Ebola epidemics have not killed this many people. It's like, yeah, one village, a couple dozen people died, we quarantined it, it burned itself out, the end. The Ebola's gone. Somebody ate bushmeat. It looks like it's gone a little bit more epidemic these last few times, and people, they're not taking it seriously. And if it goes fully airborne, if it has that one special 1 in a billion chance mutation, the more people that get infected, the higher the likelihood of that, then all hell breaks loose. It won't be a few thousand people dead, it'll be millions of people dead, maybe billions. Yes, it could go worldwide, it could snuff out life all over the world. You know, when the Spanish flu comes, it infected places like fucking people in Greenland were getting it and shit. Yeah, how much trade and travel did they have? It was like the Black Plague all over again. You know, tens of millions of people all over the world keeling over. Can you even imagine something with a 50% death rate? You got a town of 10,000 people, you got to bury 4,000 or 5,000 people? Shit, you won't even be able to bury everyone. You'll have to do what they did during the Black Plague. They took the Seine and they consecrated it so they could just dump the bodies in the river. Now have to immolate people. They'll be burning piles of bodies. They'll have, like, the corpse collectors will be ringing their little bells in the most literal sense in urban areas if that happens. You know, you have one apartment building, you have thousands of people living in it, and each morning is 5 or 6 bodies stacked outside. Yeah, I'm sure that would be very, very good for cultures all around the world. That's about all.